If you've ever considered signing up for a medical study just for the money, you might want to skip this one. Because 30 days ago, I walked into the Meridian Research Facility thinking I'd made the easiest $1,200 of my life. Now I'm not even sure what day it is anymore. The ad was simple. Participate in a sleep and cognition study. 30 days, $40 per day paid at completion. All meals provided, private room. The only catch was complete isolation. No phone, no internet, no visitors. Just you, a room, and whatever books or journals you wanted to bring. As a grad student drowning in debt, it seemed perfect. A month to catch up on reading, get paid, and help science. What could go wrong? The facility itself looked normal enough from the outside. A low, modern building on the edge of the medical campus, all glass and steel. But once they led me past the main entrance, through 3 separate security doors, each requiring a key card and fingerprint scan, the aesthetic changed. White walls, white floors, white ceiling tiles with fluorescent lights that hummed at a frequency you felt more than heard. The air smelled like antiseptic and recycled oxygen, that flat, processed quality you get in airplanes or underground bunkers. My room was cell number 17. I say cell, but they called it a suite, 12 by 12 feet, a single bed with white sheets, a small desk bolted to the wall, a toilet and sink behind a privacy partition. One camera in the corner near the ceiling, its red light blinking steadily. The only window was in the door, a narrow rectangle of reinforced glass that looked out onto an empty white hallway. The door itself was heavy, institutional, with a slot at the bottom for meal trays. The researcher who checked me in was friendly enough. Her name was Dr. Sarah Chen, and her voice came through a small intercom speaker mounted above the door. Warm, professional, with just the slightest hint of an accent I couldn't place. She explained the routine. Breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 6, blood draw every morning at 8, psychological questionnaire on the tablet computer every evening at 9. Lights out at 10, although I could use the small reading lamp by the bed if I wanted. She said I could call for her anytime using the intercom button, that if I felt uncomfortable or wanted to withdraw from the study, I just needed to say the word and they'd process my exit within 24 hours, prorated payment included. No questions asked, no judgment. That made me feel better. An escape hatch, even if I didn't plan to use it. The first few days were actually kind of nice, peaceful. I'd brought 4 books, my journal, and a sketch pad. I read, I wrote, I slept more than I had in years. The meals came through the slot exactly on time, always hot, always decent quality. Grilled chicken and vegetables, pasta with marinara, fresh fruit. They even accommodated my request for vegetarian options. The blood draws were quick and professional. A nurse I never saw would knock twice. I'd sit on the bed with my arm extended toward the slot, and a gloved hand would appear with the needle. 30 seconds, tops. The questionnaires were standard stuff at first. How did you sleep? Rate your mood from 1 to 10. Any unusual dreams? Describe your emotional state. I answered honestly. Sleep quality, 8 out of 10. Mood, pretty good. Dreams, nothing memorable. I figured they were establishing a baseline. It was on day 4 that I first heard the voices. Not through the door, not from the hallway, but through the ventilation grate above my bed. Faint, muffled, but definitely human. A man's voice, talking to himself maybe. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was conversational, normal. It was comforting actually, knowing I wasn't completely alone in this wing of the facility, that there were other participants going through the same thing. I pressed the intercom button and asked Dr. Chen about it. Her response came through clear and measured. She said yes, there were 6 other participants in this study cycle, all in separate rooms on this floor. The ventilation system was shared, so some sound transference was normal. Nothing to worry about. If it became disruptive, I should let her know and they could adjust the airflow. I thanked her and went back to my book. That night, I had my first vivid dream. I was in my room exactly as it was, but the walls were breathing, expanding and contracting like lungs. The white paint rippled with each breath, and I could hear a heartbeat, deep and slow, coming from somewhere behind the walls. In the dream, I got out of bed and pressed my hand against the wall. It was warm, pulse beating beneath my palm. When I woke up, my hand was actually pressed against the wall, and I jerked it back like I'd touched something hot. The questionnaire that evening asked about dreams again. This time I had something to report. I described it in detail. The breathing walls, the heartbeat, the warmth. When I submitted it, the tablet screen blinked and displayed a simple message. Thank you for your response. This information is valuable to our research. Day 7 is when I started losing track of time. Not in a dramatic way, just small discrepancies. I'd look at the clock on the wall, which read 3:15 p.m., then glance down at my book for what felt like maybe 20 minutes, and when I looked back up, it would be 6:30. Dinner would slide through the slot right on schedule, confirming the time, but I couldn't account for those missing hours. I thought maybe I'd dozed off without realizing it. The voices through the vent became more frequent. Sometimes I'd hear that same man, but other times a woman's voice. Once, I swear I heard crying, soft and distant. I pressed the intercom and asked Dr. Chen if everyone was okay. She assured me that all participants were healthy and adjusting well. Some emotional responses were normal in isolation studies. If I was concerned about my own emotional state, we could schedule a verbal check-in. I said no, I was fine. I just wanted to make sure. But that night, I woke up and I wasn't in bed. I was standing in the corner of the room, facing the wall, my forehead pressed against the white paint. My reading lamp was on, casting long shadows. The clock said 4:37 a.m. I had no memory of getting up, no memory of walking to the corner. My legs ached like I'd been standing there for a while. When I climbed back into bed, my hands were shaking. The dreams were getting worse, more vivid, more specific. I dreamed I was watching myself through the camera in the corner, watching myself sleep, watching myself get up and stand in the corner, watching myself write in my journal, but the words on the page weren't the ones I remembered writing. In the dream, I zoomed in on the journal, and the handwriting wasn't quite mine. Close, but the loops were different. The pressure of the pen was different. When I woke up, I grabbed my journal from the desk and flipped through it. Everything looked normal. My handwriting, my entries, observations about the study, sketches of the room, fragments of poetry I'd been working on. But there, on the page dated day 9, was a sentence I didn't remember writing. The walls are listening. I stared at it for a full minute. The handwriting was mine. The pen was mine. But I had absolutely no memory of writing those words. By day 12, or what I thought was day 12, the routine had become almost hypnotic. Wake up, blood draw, breakfast, read, lunch, stare at the walls, dinner, questionnaire, sleep, repeat. The fluorescent lights never changed intensity. The temperature never varied. 72 degrees, constant. The hum of the ventilation system had become like white noise, something my brain had learned to filter out. Except when the voices came through. I'd started talking back to them. Nothing serious, just acknowledgments. When I heard the man's voice, I'd say good morning toward the vent. When I heard the woman, I'd ask how she was doing. I never got responses. Not directly, but sometimes, maybe 10 or 15 minutes later, I'd hear a laugh or a sigh, and I'd convince myself it was meant for me, that we were all in this together, keeping each other company through the metal ducts. Dr. Chen's check-ins through the intercom had become the highlight of my day. She'd ask how I was feeling, if I needed anything, extra books, different food, a warmer blanket. Her voice was so steady, so normal, that it anchored me, reminded me there was a world outside this white box, that this was temporary, just a study, just 30 days. I'd be out soon. But the dreams kept escalating. I dreamed I was walking through identical white rooms, one after another, each with the same bed, same desk, same camera with its blinking red eye. In each room there was a version of me, sleeping or writing or standing in the corner. I'd try to wake them up, shake their shoulders, but they wouldn't respond. And then I'd notice that each version was slightly different. One had shorter hair, One had a scar on her wrist I didn't have. One was whispering numbers under her breath. I started keeping detailed notes about the time discrepancies. I'd write down the time, then make a mark in my journal every time I checked the clock, trying to catch the jumps. But the marks didn't help. I'd have 6 entries showing normal progression, 2 or 3 minutes between each check, and then suddenly there'd be a 4-hour gap with no explanation, no sense of missing time, no grogginess like I'd fallen asleep, just gone. The blood draws were happening more frequently. I was certain of it. Twice a day now, sometimes 3 times. Morning, afternoon, evening. My inner elbows were starting to bruise, small purple marks where the needle went in. I pressed the intercom and asked Dr. Chen about it. She said the increased frequency was normal for this phase of the study. They were monitoring my cortisol levels, circadian rhythm markers, stress hormones, all standard. But her voice sounded slightly different, flatter, like she was reading from a script. On day 15, I found the second journal. I'd gotten up to use the toilet, and when I came back, there was something under my bed that hadn't been there before. A small notebook, spiral bound, identical to the one I'd brought with me. I pulled it out and opened it. The first page had a name written at the top, Emma Reeves, my name. But it wasn't my handwriting. Close, but not quite. The same way that sentence about the walls had been almost mine, but not. My hands went cold as I flipped through the pages. Entries, dated, day 1, day 2, day 3. The writing described arriving at the facility, being assigned to room 17, meeting Dr. Chen. The same meals I'd eaten, the same routine, the same dreams about breathing walls and watching herself through the camera. The same mysterious sentence appearing in the journal, the walls are listening. But this journal went further than mine. It went to day 23. I read the later entries with my heart hammering against my ribs. Day 16, the handwriting said, was when she started finding the others, other journals, other Emmas, all describing the same experience, all in room 17. She'd counted 5 journals total before she stopped looking, before she realized that looking made it worse, that acknowledging the pattern made the pattern stronger. The entry for day 20 described asking Dr. Chen directly about previous participants, about whether anyone else named Emma Reeves had been in this study. Dr. Chen had said no, said this was the first cycle with that name, said the participant must be experiencing dissociative symptoms, common in prolonged isolation, nothing to worry about, perfectly normal. Day 21 described the walls actually breathing, not in a dream, in reality, watching them expand and contract in the periphery of vision, but stopping whenever she looked directly at them, feeling the vibration through the floor, the steady, rhythmic pulse. Day 22 was mostly illegible, frantic scrawling, partial sentences. They won't let me leave, said the word. Exit protocol. They smiled. Still here. Camera watching. Always watching. They're in the walls. They're in my head. How many Emmas? How many rooms? How many? Day 23 was one sentence. If you're reading this, you're me, and you need to get out now. I dropped the journal like it had burned me, pressed the intercom button so hard my finger went white. Dr. Chen. I need to speak with Dr. Chen. My voice came out higher than I intended, shaky. The intercom crackled. 1 moment, please. Standard hold music started playing. Soft, generic, the kind you hear in elevators. I stood there, finger on the button, waiting. The music played for what felt like 10 minutes. Then it cut off. Dr. Chen's voice came through. Hello, Emma. How can I help you? I asked about previous participants. I asked about other journals. I asked about day counts and whether I was really on day 15 or if I'd been here longer. There was a pause, just static. Then she spoke, and her voice was exactly the same as always. Warm, professional, measured. You're experiencing some disorientation, common in isolation studies. You've been with us for 15 days. You're doing very well. All your markers are excellent. Just 15 more days and you'll receive your full compensation. I looked down at the journal in my hands. At the entry for day 23, I asked her directly, has anyone named Emma Reeves participated in this study before? Another pause, longer this time, then no Emma. You're the first with that name in this facility. Is there something specific that's concerning you? We can arrange a psychological consultation if you're feeling anxious. I didn't answer. I just stood there, holding the journal, staring at the camera in the corner. The red light blinked, steady, constant. I wondered who was watching, if it was really Dr. Chen, if Dr. Chen was even real, if any of this was real. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at the desk with both journals open in front of me, mine and the other one, comparing handwriting, the way I made my capital E, the loop of my lowercase g. They were nearly identical, different enough that I could tell them apart if I looked closely, but similar enough that if I didn't know better, I'd think I'd written both. I started reading my own journal from the beginning, every entry, looking for gaps, for inconsistencies, and I found them, small things. An entry from day 6 that mentioned finishing a book I knew I hadn't started until day 8. A sketch from day 9 that showed the room from an angle I couldn't have drawn from my bed. A comment about the lunch on day 11 being chicken when I clearly remembered it being fish. Unless I didn't remember correctly, unless my memory was wrong, unless isolation was doing exactly what they said it would do, making me disoriented, confused, unreliable. I pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw spots, tried to ground myself. Facts, concrete facts. I came here 30 days ago. No, 15 days ago. I came here 15 days ago. I have 15 days left. Then I get paid. Then I leave. This is temporary. This is fine. This is normal. But when I opened my eyes and looked at the clock, it read 3:47 a.m., and I had no idea what time it had been when I sat down. And my reading lamp was off, even though I hadn't turned it off. And there was a new sentence in my journal, written in my handwriting, that I didn't remember writing. They're in the walls, they're in my head, they're in the time between seconds, and I'm starting to think I've always been here. I stopped sleeping after that. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I was sleeping all the time and just didn't know it. The distinction had started to blur. I'd be sitting at the desk, reading, and then suddenly I'd be standing in the corner facing the wall with no memory of getting up. I'd be lying in bed with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, and then the meal tray would slide through the slot and I'd realize hours had passed. The clock had become meaningless. Sometimes it moved forward. Sometimes I swear it moved backward. Once I watched it jump from 2:14 p.m. to 7:39 p.m. in the span of a single blink. The voices through the vent had changed. They were clearer now, more distinct. I could make out words. The man's voice said things like day 17, day 18, day 19, like he was counting. The woman's voice whispered about the walls, about the cameras, about Dr. Chen's voice sounding wrong. And sometimes, late at night or early in the morning or whatever time it actually was, I heard my own voice coming through the vent, speaking words I hadn't said, describing things I hadn't done yet, or had already done, or was doing right now in some other version of this room. I started testing the door, not violently, just checking. Every few hours I'd walk over and try the handle. It was always locked. Of course it was locked. That was part of the study. Isolation meant isolation, but I needed to confirm it, needed the resistance, needed to feel that I was contained, because if I wasn't contained, if the door was actually open, then staying here was a choice, and I didn't want it to be a choice. The questionnaires had become strange. The tablet would ask things like, how many times have you been here before? Do you remember your first arrival or your most recent? When you close your eyes, how many versions of yourself can you count? Describe the taste of white. I'd answer honestly, or as honestly as I could. 0 times before. I remember arriving 15 days ago. No, wait, maybe it was longer. 1 version of myself. White doesn't have a taste. But even as I typed the answers, I wasn't sure they were true. Dr. Chen stopped responding to the intercom. I'd press the button and get only static, or sometimes the hold music. Once, I got a recording of her voice saying, "Thank you for your patience, someone will be with you shortly." But no one ever came. The blood draws continued, though. That gloved hand appearing through the slot, needle ready, efficient and impersonal. I'd started wondering if it was human, if there was actually a nurse on the other side, or if it was mechanical, robotic, programmed. On what I thought was day 19, I decided to search the room properly, every inch, looking for anything else that had been left behind. I started with the bed, pulling off the sheets, checking the mattress seams, running my fingers along the metal frame. Nothing. The desk was bolted down, but I checked the drawers anyway. Empty except for my books and journals. The toilet area, the sink, behind the privacy partition. Nothing. Then I looked up. The ventilation grate. I'd been hearing voices through it for weeks, but I'd never actually examined it. I dragged the desk chair over, climbed up, and peered through the metal slats. Darkness, moving air, the hum of the system. I could smell something, though, not the usual antiseptic, something organic, decay maybe, or old paper. I pressed my face closer to the grate and called out, "Hello, is anyone there? Can anyone hear me?" The response came immediately, not from far away, not muffled, crystal clear like someone was right on the other side of the grate, inches from my face. "I can hear you." The voice was mine, exactly mine. Same pitch, same cadence, same slight raps from years of coffee and late nights. "I can hear you, Emma. I've been waiting for you to find this." I fell off the chair, landed hard on my hip, pain shooting up my side, scrambled backward until my back hit the wall, stared up at the vent. The voice came again, drifting down like smoke. "Don't be scared, I'm you, or I was you, or I will be you. The time doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that you understand. This isn't a study. It's not 30 days. You need to look under the mattress. Northeast corner, there's a seam. Open it." I didn't want to. Every instinct told me to press the intercom, to demand they let me out, to invoke the exit protocol that Dr. Chen had promised on day 1. 24 hours and I'd be free. Prorated payment, no questions asked. But I knew, somehow I knew, that wasn't true anymore, had never been true. So instead, I crawled to the bed on my hands and knees, flipped the mattress up, and found the seam. It was barely visible, a thin line in the fabric, stitched closed with thread that almost matched. I picked at it with my fingernails until it came loose, reached inside the gap. My fingers touched paper. I pulled out a stack of documents, maybe 20 pages, folded and compressed, smoothed them out on the floor. Medical records, all with my name. Emma Catherine Reeves, date of birth, social security number, emergency contact. But the admission dates were wrong. The first one said I'd been admitted 3 years ago, September 14th. The next was 2 years and 8 months ago, then 2 years and 3 months, then 2 years exactly. They continued like that, every few months a new admission date, each one to room 17, each one for a 30-day study, each one noting the same vitals, the same psychological baseline, the same consent forms. At the bottom of the stack was a photograph, me standing in this exact room wearing clothes I didn't recognize, hospital scrubs, light blue. My hair was longer than I remembered it ever being. My face was thinner. There were dark circles under my eyes that looked permanent, etched in. On the back of the photo, someone had written in pen, "Patient 0, day 1095, memory reset successful, beginning new cycle." I couldn't breathe. The room felt smaller, the walls closer, the ceiling pressing down. I looked up at the camera at that blinking red light and I shouted, "Let me out! I want to leave! I'm invoking the exit protocol! You promised! Dr. Chen promised! Let me out right now!" The intercom crackled to life. Not Dr. Chen's voice, someone else. Male, clinical, detached. "Emma, you need to calm down. You're experiencing a dissociative episode. This is normal given your condition. Please return the documents to their location and take your evening medication. It will be delivered with your dinner." I didn't have a condition. I'd been healthy when I arrived, perfect health. The screening had confirmed it. Unless that was a memory from a different cycle, a different arrival, a different me who thought she was arriving for the first time. I grabbed my journal, the original one I'd brought, and flipped to the first page. The date I'd written was September 12th, 2 days before the first admission date on the medical records, but I couldn't remember writing it, couldn't remember the pen in my hand or the decision to mark the date. It was just there, like it had always been there, like everything in this room had always been here. The meal slot opened, a tray slid through. Dinner. Salisbury steak and green beans. A small paper cup with 2 pills, one white, one blue. The slot closed. I stared at the pills, wondered how many times I'd taken them before, how many cycles I'd been through, how many versions of myself had sat in this exact spot, holding these exact pills, having this exact realization. I didn't take them. I set them aside and ate the food because my body was hungry even if my mind was screaming. The steak tasted like nothing. The green beans were soft and gray. I chewed and swallowed mechanically. When I was done, I picked up the other journal, the one I'd found under the bed, and turned to the last entry. Day 23. If you're reading this, you're me, and you need to get out now. Below that, in different ink, was another sentence I hadn't seen before. I tried. They brought me back. Day count reset. And below that, in even different ink, smaller handwriting, almost illegible. 7th attempt. Don't trust the doors, don't trust the time, don't trust yourself. The only way out is to stop believing you ever came in. I looked at the clock. It read 11:59 p.m. I watched the second hand tick. 58, 57, 56. When it reached 0, when midnight arrived, the lights went out. Complete darkness. And in that darkness, I heard the walls begin to breathe. The breathing was rhythmic, steady, in and out, in and out. I could feel it through the floor, through the walls, through the air itself. The darkness was absolute. The emergency lights should have kicked on, but they didn't. I pressed myself against the bed, trying to orient myself in the black, and that's when I felt the wall behind me expand, push outward, then contract, like a lung, like the room itself was alive and I was inside it. I fumbled for my reading lamp, found the switch, clicked it on, nothing happened. Clicked it again, nothing. The darkness pressed in, thick and textured, and I could hear my own breathing trying to sync with the walls, trying to match the rhythm. I held my breath to break the pattern. 5 seconds, 10, 15. My chest burned, 20. The walls kept breathing without me. Then the lights came back on, fluorescent, harsh, instant. I was standing in the corner facing the wall, my forehead pressed against the white paint, both palms flat on either side of my head. I spun around, heart hammering. The room looked exactly the same. Bed, desk, camera with its blinking red eye, door with its narrow window. But the clock now read 3:22 a.m. I'd lost 3.5 hours. On the desk, arranged in a neat row, were 4 more journals, all identical to mine, all with my name on the first page, all filled with entries. I didn't want to read them, didn't want to confirm what I already knew, but I opened the first one anyway. The handwriting was mine, but younger, neater, more optimistic. The entries described arriving at the facility excited about the opportunity, looking forward to the quiet, the chance to focus. By day 15, the tone had changed. Confusion, fear, the same discoveries I'd made, the same questions I'd asked, the same realization that something was deeply wrong. The second journal was angrier, more erratic. Accusations against Dr. Chen, against the facility, demands to be released, threats of legal action. The entries stopped abruptly on day 28. The last line said, "They're coming for me. I can hear them in the walls. I won't let them reset me again. I won't forget." The third journal was clinical, detached, like reading a case study. It documented everything methodically, the time discrepancies, the physical changes to the room, the way the camera angle seemed to shift, the pattern of the blood draws, the composition of the meals. It read like someone trying to prove their own sanity through documentation, through evidence. The final entry was dated day 30, payment received, exit interview completed, walked out the front door, got in my car, drove home, woke up in room 17, day 1, again. The fourth journal was the shortest, only 5 entries, each one a single sentence. I remember now, I've always been here. There is no outside, there is no before, there is only room 17 and the versions of myself who think they just arrived. The last page was blank except for a drawing, the room sketched from above, like the camera's perspective, and in the center a figure in the corner facing the wall, dozens of them. Overlapping, the same figure repeated over and over in the exact same position. I grabbed all the journals, all the medical records, the photograph, everything, and I shoved them through the meal slot, forced them through even though they barely fit, let them scatter in the hallway. Evidence. Proof. When they opened the door, when they came to let me out, they'd see. They'd have to acknowledge it. They couldn't deny it if the proof was right there in front of them. I pressed the intercom button. My voice was hoarse but steady. I know what this is. I know what you're doing. I know I've been here for 3 years. I know about the resets. I know about the other versions. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not taking the medication. I'm not forgetting again. I'm not starting over. You need to let me out. The real out. Not the fake exit that leads back here. The actual exit. I remember my life before this. I remember my apartment, my friends, my thesis advisor. I remember applying for this study. I remember everything, and you can't take that away from me. Silence, just static. Then a click, and Dr. Chen's voice, warm and professional and exactly the same as always. Emma, sweetheart, I need you to listen to me very carefully. You've been with us for 3 years. You were admitted after a severe psychotic break. You hurt yourself. You hurt others. Your family signed the commitment papers. We've been trying to help you, but you keep regressing. Every time we make progress, every time you start to accept reality, you create these elaborate stories, studies, and exit protocols and conspiracies. None of it is real. Room 17 is your home until you're well enough to rejoin society. We're trying to help you. Please take your medication. No, that wasn't true. I wasn't sick. I was a graduate student. I was healthy. I had signed up for a study, 30 days, $40 a day. I had a life waiting for me. I had. The memories felt thin, transparent. When I tried to picture my apartment, I couldn't remember the color of the walls. My thesis advisor's face was blurry. My friends' names wouldn't come. But that was because of the isolation, because of the stress, because they'd done something to me, not because I'd never had them. I looked at the camera and I said it out loud, to make it real, to cement it in reality. My name is Emma Catherine Reeves. I'm 26 years old. I came here 30 days ago. No, 19 days ago. I came here for a study. I'm not sick. I'm not. The door opened. I hadn't heard it unlock, hadn't heard footsteps, but it swung inward, smooth and silent, and standing in the hallway was Dr. Chen. Except she didn't look like I'd imagined. She was younger than her voice suggested. Asian features, kind eyes, white coat over scrubs. She smiled at me, gentle and sad, and held out her hand. Come on, Emma, let's get you somewhere more comfortable. You've had a very difficult night. I looked past her into the hallway. White walls, white floor, fluorescent lights, and doors. Dozens of doors, all identical, all with narrow windows, all with meal slots. And through some of the windows I could see faces, watching. Women who looked like me, some younger, some older, some with longer hair, some with scars. All of them standing in their rooms, pressed against their doors, staring out at me with expressions I recognized. Confusion, hope, terror, recognition. Dr. Chen followed my gaze and her smile didn't waver. The others are doing very well. Some have been here longer than you, some are newer, but they're all getting the help they need, just like you. Now come on, let's go. I stepped into the hallway. My legs were shaking. Dr. Chen's hand was warm on my elbow, guiding me. We walked past the other doors, past the other versions of me, past room 16, room 15, room 14, all the way to the end of the hall where a heavy door marked exit waited. She pushed it open. Beyond it was another hallway, more white walls, more doors, more fluorescent lights humming at that same frequency that made your teeth ache, and at the far end I could see another door marked exit, and beyond that I knew would be another hallway, another set of rooms, another exit that led nowhere. Dr. Chen's voice was soft beside me. You see, Emma, there's no conspiracy, no study, just treatment, just healing, just time, and we have all the time in the world. She guided me through the door. It closed behind us with a soft click. The hallway stretched ahead, endless and white and exactly the same as every other hallway I'd walked down, every other exit I'd taken, every other reset I'd experienced. And somewhere, far away or maybe right next to me, I could hear my own voice coming through a ventilation grate, counting. Day 1, day 2, day 3, starting over, again. That was 6 weeks ago, or 6 days ago, or 6 years ago. Time doesn't work the same way anymore. I'm in a different room now. They said it would help, room 23 instead of 17, different number, same white walls, same camera, same meal slot, same Dr. Chen's voice through the intercom, warm and steady and lying. I don't know if I was ever a graduate student. Don't know if the study was real or if it was always a delusion. Don't know if my memories of a life outside are true or just stories I told myself to make the white walls bearable. What I do know is this: I'm not the only Emma Reeves here. And every time I think I'm getting close to the truth, every time I think I understand what this place really is, I wake up in a corner facing a wall with hours missing and new journals appearing and the clock showing impossible times. So if you're thinking about signing up for a medical study, if you see an ad for easy money and all you have to do is stay in a room for 30 days, I need you to do something for me. Check the facility name, check the room number, check your own name. Because if any of them say Meridian, or Room 17, or Emma Reeves, then you need to understand something. You're not signing up. You're already here. You've always been here. And somewhere in this building, in one of these endless white hallways, there's a version of you standing in a corner facing a wall waiting to remember that she never actually left.